18.
Cam. Meals with Roberta on the veranda. Always so formal. Always so genteel. Always a reminder to Cam that he is forever beneath her thumb. Even when he's miles away at West Point, he knows he will still feel her manipulations. Her puppeteer's strings are woven through his mind just as effectively as the worm that makes him forget that which is truly important. During breakfast, a few days before he's scheduled to leave, he asks her the question point blank, the question that sits between them at every meal like a glass of poison that neither is willing to touch. What's her name? He doesn't expect an answer. He knows Roberta will evade. You're leaving for a grand new life soon. What's the point? There's no point. I just want to hear you say it. Roberta takes a small bite of her eggs, Benedict, and puts down the fork. Even if I tell you, the nanites will break the synapses and rob the memory within seconds. Tell me anyways. Roberta sighs, crosses her arms, and to Cam's amazement, says her name was Risa Ward. But the moment the words are spoken, they're gone from his mind, leaving him to wonder if she had told him at all. What was her name? He asks again. Risa Ward. What was her name? Risa Ward. What was her name? Roberta shakes her head in a belittling show of pity. You see, it's no use. Best to spend your time thinking of your future, Cam, not the past. He looks at his plate, feeling anything but hungry. From deep within him comes a desperate whisper of a question. He can't even remember why he's asking it, but it must have some significance. Mustn't it? What was her name? I have no idea what you're talking about, Roberta says. Now finish up. We have a lot to do before you leave. 19. Risa. The girl who Cam can't remember is running for her life. It was a bad idea, actually a whole series of them, that brought her to this circumstance. Only now does Risa comprehend how monumentally bad those ideas were, as she races from armed security guards in a massive research hospital complex. There are windows, but they only look out on other wings of the complex, so there is no way to get one's bearings. Risa is convinced they're running in circles, spiraling toward inevitable doom. There was little choice but to go on this fool's mission. If an organ printer arrived as stillborn technology when they made their grand play, then all their efforts will have been for naught. It was crucial that they find a way to test it, for only by demonstrating what it could do would the world sit up and take notice. Making sure it works shouldn't have been your job, Connor pointed out to Sonia as they discussed it in a relatively private corner of her basement. You've been sitting on the thing for 30 years. You could have checked that it worked before you brought us into it. Sonia glared at him. So sue me, she said, and then add, oh, that's right, you can't, because for the past 2 years you've had the legal status of a canned ham. Connor matched her glare dagger for dagger until Sonia backed down. I never thought I'd get the chance to bring it out again, she said, so I never bothered. What changed? Connor asked. You showed up. Although Connor couldn't get why that should matter, Risa did. It's their notoriety that makes all the difference. They have become the royalty of AWOLs. Attach their names to something, and suddenly people listen, whether they want to or not. OSU Medical Center, Sonia said. It's one of the only research hospitals in the Midwest that does curative biological research. Everyone else is just trying to figure out better ways of using parts from unwinds. Plenty of funding for that, but try to fund alternatives and you get nothing but tumbleweeds. OSU? Connor said, as in Ohio State University, as in the one in Columbus. You got a problem with that? Sonia asked. Connor gave her no answer. She went on to tell them of one rogue doctor who was still seeking cures for systemic diseases, the kind that can't be cured by transplantation. And guess what? What's at the heart of that research? Sonia asked mischievously. The answer, of course, was adult pluripotent stem cells, the very sort of cells needed for that printer. They had to talk Sonia out of going after the cells herself. A few days before, she had twisted her ankle and bruised her hip in a fall that no one had seen, probably back at her home. She tried to downplay it, but clearly she'd been in pain ever since. She couldn't go, but someone had to. They discussed the possibility of sending some of the kids from the basement to retrieve the biomatter, but they didn't discuss it for long. This batch of AWOLs wasn't exactly the secret mission type. Risa hated to judge any AWOLs the way the world judged them, but these poor kids had none of the skill sets needed to pull it off, and a grab bag of personal issues that would do nothing but hinder them. The kids in Sonia's basement would be liabilities on this mission. All of them, that is, except for Bo. For all his cockiness, he was capable, but was he capable enough to pull this off? Risa didn't think so. I'll go, Risa offered. Bad idea number 1. I'll go with you, Connor chimed in. Bad idea number 2. Sonia raged about it, insisting that they'd be recognized, and that of all the people that shouldn't go, Connor and Risa topped the list. She was, of course, right. Well, I ain't going, Grace was quick to announce. I've had quite enough excitement over the past few weeks, thank you very much. To Sonia's absolute chagrin, Grace had appointed herself as Sonia's personal caregiver, minding that she didn't fall again. I don't need a nursemaid, Sonia kept telling her, which just doubled Grace's resolve. Risa knew a team of 2 was iffy. They needed at least one more as a failsafe, and so Risa suggested that Bo be added to the team. Bad idea number 3. Are you kidding me? You want to ask Bo to come? Connor said back in the basement. He raised his eyebrows at Risa. Bo, really? He was amused, and it ticked Risa off. We're going to have to interact out there. We need at least one face people aren't currently wearing on t-shirts. Connor couldn't argue with that logic. Bo, of course, was thrilled to be included, although he tried to feign being blasé. I'll drive, he proclaimed. You'll sit in the back, Connor told him, then handed him an old GPS he had pulled from a bin of marginal technology in Sonia's shop. We'll need you to navigate. Risa had to grin at the way Connor put Bo in his place without making him lose face. It was Sonia's idea to arm them all with trink-loaded pistols. Risa couldn't stand the things because they reminded her of the juvies. She hated the idea of using the juvenile authorities' weapon of choice. Tranks are quick, effective, and leave no mess. Even a peripheral hit does the job, Sonia told her. That's why the juvies use them. Risa was quick to remove the tranks from Bo's gun when he wasn't looking. The last thing she or Connor wanted was a trigger-happy Bo. That was this morning. Now, as they run through the hospital complex, Bo insists he knows where he's going, even though neither of them had a clue about the maze-like facility. The blueprint they studied in preparation was hopelessly out of date and didn't include the newer buildings or renovations in the older ones. It's Sunday, and the particular office wing they've barged into is full of empty waiting rooms with generic art prints on the walls, another place that's not on the map they studied. This way, Bo says, although Risa's sure it's going to take them back to where they had been. She goes along because at this point any direction seems as good as another. She can only hope that Connor, wherever he is, hasn't been caught. Connor took a different passageway, one that theoretically leads to the research wing of the massive complex. They hadn't planned on splitting up, but Connor had already turned a corner when a hospital rent-a-cop spotted Risa and Bo. Since the guard hadn't seen Connor, it seemed the clear choice to Risa that she and Bo act as decoys, luring the somewhat hefty guard away. The trick is to stay far enough ahead not to be caught, but close enough so that the guard doesn't give up. Give up the chase and go for donuts in the cafeteria, maybe encountering Connor along the way. The guard, however, is determined, and soon he's joined by a slimmer, faster comrade. That's when things begin to get serious. Risa and Bo come to a dead end in the radiology wing. A locked door. The only way out is the way they came. The moment they turn, the two guards come around the corner, and seeing that the two kids are cornered, they slow down and get a little smug in anticipation of the capture. Gave us a good workout, didn't ya? The chubby one says, huffing and puffing. Put your hands where we can see them, says the slim one. Risa turns to Bo and speaks under her breath. We'll talk our way out of it, she says. We haven't done anything but make them chase us. If they don't recognize me, as the guard gets closer, Risa sees a determined look in Bo's eyes, and his hand is still in the pocket of his hoodie. No one runs without a reason, says the chubby one. My bet is that you're a couple of AWOLs, aren't ya? Hands where we can see them, insists the other again, unsnapping the holster on his weapon. So Bo pulls out his hand, and in his hand is a pistol, and he aims the pistol at the slim rent-a-cop. Bad idea number 4. Bo levels his pistol at the slim guard. Risa knows exactly how this will go down, and she can only hope that the rent-a-cops are armed with tranks and not real bullets, but she doubts it. The instant the targeted guard sees the weapon in Bo's hand, he reaches for his own gun, so Bo pulls the trigger, and to Risa's amazement, Bo's pistol goes off. She hears the telltale of a trank shot, and it hits the guard in the shoulder before he can raise his own gun, and in a second, he's down on his knees, and in another second, he's falling face down onto the institutionally carpeted floor, unconscious. The other cop, who probably never actually had to draw a gun in his life, is fumbling with the holster, and Bo tranks him right in the chest. The man lets out a squeak that sounds like pshaw, stumbles a bit like a dying diva, and falls back against the wall, sliding to the ground out cold. Come on, Bo says. Let's get out of here. He takes her hand and pulls her away from the scene. She's too flabbergasted to resist his grasp. But how? You think I didn't know what you did? I wasn't coming in here with an empty gun. Risa finally pulls out of his grasp and turns around. What are you doing? We can't just leave them here, she says. Someone will find them. We need to hide them. Bo goes back with her, and together they drag the men down the hall. Then, with a faint voice, comes through one of the guards' earpieces, asking for the status of the unsubs. Bo grabs it and says in a very convincing voice, 10-4, just a couple of local pharaohs. They ran out a back door. Not our problem anymore. Amen to that, says the voice on the other end. And they've brought themselves at least 10 minutes until someone wonders about the two guards' mysterious disappearance. 10-4, Risa asks. Did you actually say 10-4? Bo shrugs. It worked, didn't it? They put the thin guard inside a wooden toy box in a deserted pediatric waiting room. The corpulent one fits nicely in the cabinet underneath a huge fish tank, ironically populated by pufferfish that somewhat resemble the man. Now that the unconscious guards are safely tucked away, Risa begins to relax. There's an exhilaration to a narrow escape that Risa had almost forgotten, a physiological payoff to the adrenaline rush of danger. Bo, feeling his own relief, begins to laugh. It makes Risa laugh in spite of herself, which makes Bo laugh even harder, pushing Risa towards an unwanted giggle fit that is suddenly silenced by Bo grabbing her and kissing her. Her response is immediate and reflexive, although even if it wasn't a reflex, she's pretty sure she would have done the same thing. She pushes him off and pops him in the eye with such force that his neck snaps back and his head hits the fish tank with a thud, scattering pufferfish in all directions. Risa doesn't want to stay for whatever the aftermath will be, apologetic or angry. She doesn't care. She storms away. Risa, wait. Of all the things to deal with at this particular moment, why must she have to suffer the advances of yet another hormonal douchebag? Risa! She turns to him with fury and has to restrain herself from slugging him again. Are you an idiot? Stop saying my name. They don't know who we are, and if there happens to be anyone in these offices who can hear you, sorry. His eye is already swelling. Good. If Connor had seen that, your face would look a whole lot worse, she tells him. It was a spur-of-the-moment thing. Why is it that every loser with a penis feels the obligation to put moves on me? He looks at her like the answer is obvious. Because you're Risa Ward, he says. And whatever happens now, I'll go to my grave knowing that once, just once, I kissed the one and only Risa Ward. You'll go to your grave, says Risa, still outrageously bitter about the whole thing. That's just wishful thinking. More likely your memories will get ripped out and planted in someone else's head. Maybe, maybe not, he tells her. Then he finally reaches up to touch his swelling eye. He doesn't seem angry that she hit him. It's as if the act was well worth the consequences. Risa feels a buzz in her pocket and pulls out the old flip phone Sonia gave them. Such phones are the fading providers that service them. Such phones and the fading providers that service them were considered retirement sector technology. They were perfect for communicating under the radar because the network was too antiquated for the juvies to bother with. You okay? Reads Connor's text. She lets out a breath of relief to know that he hasn't been caught yet. Yes, you? She texts back. Found the lab, he texts. Meet you at car. And although she doesn't want to just leave him, she knows further wandering through the hospital will just jeopardize things. Is that him? Bo asks. What does he say? He says you're a lousy kisser, and I have to agree. Bo gives a half-hearted laugh, maybe thinking that she forgives him a little, which she doesn't. She realizes she doesn't care enough to hate him or to forgive him. We'll take the nearest stairs down, Risa says, then slip out a back way, just like you told them we did. We'll meet Connor at the car. He nods, accepting the plan, but then he's got to go ask. What if Connor doesn't show? You want another black eye, Risa says, and so he backs down from the question and opens the stairwell door for her. Oh, and for the record, I'm not a loser, Bo tells her, no matter what my unwind order says. 20. Connor. The plan is simple. Plans can be simple when you're dealing with the human mechanics of an institution that has no reason to expect intrigue or subterfuge. The hospital personnel are more on the lookout for slippery floors that might lead to lawsuits than for AWOL stealing biomatter. Why on earth would anyone want to do that? When Risa and Bo were spotted by security, Risa made the right decision to lure security away. It wasn't like the guard had any idea who they were and what they were up to. Of course, Connor's instinct was to go after Risa, but he knew it would be the wrong thing to do. That could just result in all of them getting caught. He had to trust that Risa was clever enough to play a successful cat and mouse, even if Bo couldn't. Connor now wanders down the corridors in the wings that don't cater to inpatients. It's mostly deserted on a Sunday. He finds the research building connected to the rest of the complex by the glass-enclosed skywalk, which would give the world a clear view of him if anyone in the world was looking. If someone is, he'll know soon enough. He finds the lab he's looking for in the basement. While the rest of the research building is richly appointed, the basement is utilitarian and institutional. Dimly lit corridors floored with puke-colored linoleum tiles. The low-rent district of an otherwise upscale facility. Apparently, the rogue research team that insisted on playing with pointless cellar manipulation is kept out of sight as an embarrassment to medical science, shunned as if they were studying the use of leeches and snake oil. There seems to be barely any security down here. The lab has a lock with no alarm, and it's easily picked. And with security focused on Risa and Bo, the basement of the research building is as silent as a morgue, which is probably in another basement not too far away. He takes a gamble and texts Risa he's found the lab and he'll meet them at the car. If she's been caught, that text will give him away to whoever caught her, but he has to have faith that she evaded the slow-moving guard that was in pursuit. He waits for an agonizing few moments until she texts back K. Then he releases his breath, not even realizing he had been holding it. He opens the door of the lab and flicks on a light. It's a simple repository of specimens in glass front refrigerator. There are racks of test tubes and petri dishes growing questionable cultures. There are also specimens sealed in plastic stasis containers, and the sight of them makes Connor shudder. These are the same kind of containers that are used to transport unwound parts. Modern stasis containers can preserve living tissue almost indefinitely. It's one of the many unwind-related technologies that sprang up after the signing of the Unwind Accord. Everything is labeled with the numbered codes that mean nothing to Connor. Adult pluripotent stem cells, Sonia said. He knows he's in the right place, but things in the lab are labeled for researchers, not for an intruder looking to steal something. He has an expandable tote bag that he can load with as many specimens as he can fit. He decides to take only stasis containers because specimens in test tubes and dishes probably won't survive any temperature changes in transport. He fills his bag like the Grinch stealing Christmas. Then suddenly, the lab door opens, and he's caught red-handed with his hand in the biological cookie jar by a lab tech who is so shocked by Connor's unexpected presence that he drops the glass vials he's holding, and they shatter on the ground. "Don't move," says Connor, because clearly the man is going to bolt and probably call security. "I've got a gun." Connor reaches into his jacket pocket. "No, you don't," says the nervous tech, calling his bluff. So Connor pulls out the pistol, showing that he's not bluffing at all. The guy gasps and begins to wheeze, reminding Connor of Emby, his old asthmatic friend. It then occurs to Connor that this confrontation doesn't need to happen. As Sonia pointed out, tranks aren't just for juvies anymore. They can be an AWOL's best friend too. Sorry, man, Connor says, but I've got to send you off to Tranksistan. And he pulls the trigger, only to find out that his gun isn't loaded. He looks at the weapon and realizes that this isn't the gun Sonia gave him at all. This is Bo's, the one Risa emptied. Crap. Wait, I know who you are. You're the Akron AWOL. Double crap. Don't be a moron. The Akron AWOL is hiding with the Hopi. Haven't you been watching the news? Well, you're here, so the news is wrong. You're from around here, aren't you? They call you the Akron AWOL, but you lived in Columbus. What? Does everyone in Columbus know that? Is his house like a freaking landmark now? Shut the hell up, or I swear. Connor considers knocking the guy out. He could certainly do it, but he waits to see how this unfolds before he takes such a drastic move. The lab tech just looks at him, breathing uneasily, keeping his eyes locked on Connor. No movement on either of their parts. Then the man says, "You don't want those specimens, they're already differentiated. You want the ones at the far end." Connor wasn't expecting this. "How do you know what I want?" "There's only one thing the Akron AWOL would be looking for here," he says. "Pluripotent cells, to build organs. It won't make a difference, though. Organ-building technology was a total bust. All of the research led nowhere." Connor says nothing, but his silence telegraphs the truth. "You know something, don't you?" the lab tech asks, and dares to take a step closer, excitement trumping caution. "You know something, or you wouldn't be here." Connor won't answer him or let on how troubled he is. That his intentions are so transparent. The door at the far end. He nods. Connor makes his way to the far end of the lab, keeping one eye on the lab tech as he removes the containers in his bag and refills it with containers pulled from the last cooler. "One problem," the lab tech says. "Our biomaterial is monitored. If any goes missing, it gets reported. Our funding will probably get pulled." Connor looks at the mess of broken glass by the front door. "What was in those?" The tech looks over to the broken vials. "Biomatter." Then he nods and grins at Connor, catching on to his train of thought. "A whole lot of biomatter. I'll get hell for dropping that, and forgetting to measure how much was lost before I disposed of it." "Yeah," says Connor, "too bad about that." And he finishes filling the bag. When he's done, he sees the lab tech has taken a position by the door, peering out of the little window like he's Connor's lookout. "So," says Connor, "I was never here, right?" The tech nods his agreement. "It's our secret, on one condition." Connor doesn't like the sound of that. He braces for some impossible request. "What?" Then the tech timidly asks, "Can I shake your hand?" Connor laughs. So unexpected is the request. He's seen starstruck kids, but this guy is at least 30. Then he sees that his laughter has embarrassed the man. "Nah, forget it," the guy says. "It was stupid of me to ask." No, it's okay," Cautiously, Connor approaches him and holds out his hand. He shakes Connor's hand with the cold, damp one. "A lot of folks don't like unwinding, but no one knows how to stop it, so they don't even try," the man says. And then he whispers, "But if you've got an idea, there are people ready to listen. Not everyone, but maybe enough." "Thanks," Connor says. glad that he didn't drink the guy, although he's still furious at Bo for switching guns. Connor slips out, and the tech gets to cleaning the mess of broken vials on the floor, happily whistling to himself. A lot of people want to stop unwinding, the lab tech said. It's not the first time Connor has heard that. Maybe if he hears it enough, he might begin to believe it.